This story based on my personal experience. High school is a time of excitement and anticipation, but what happens when the thrill of the unknown turns into something that never forgot? The friends are gathered at a coffee shop, discussing their plans for their final weekend before graduation. Jess pulls out an old, faded map she found in the school library's archive section. "Jess, look what I found. It's an old map of the town from the early 1900s. It shows a place called The Hollow. I think it's an old abandoned estate or something." Max: "Sounds like the perfect adventure before we all head off in different directions." Lily: "Yeah, as long as it's safe. I've heard stories about places like that being creepy." The friends drive to the outskirts of town. As they approach the location marked on the map, the road becomes increasingly overgrown and less traveled. Lily: "Are you sure this is the right way?" Max: "It has to be. The map is old, but it should lead us to the hollow." They find an old, rusted gate covered in vines. Beyond it lies a sprawling, dilapidated mansion surrounded by an overgrown garden. Sam: "This place looks like it's straight out of a horror movie." Jess: "Exactly why it'll be an adventure." They enter through the gate, and as they walk towards the mansion, the sky starts to cloud over, casting long shadows. The friends explore the mansion, which is filled with cobwebs and dust-covered furniture. Lily: "This place gives me the creeps. I'm not sure about this." Jess: "Relax. It's just an old house." They find an ornate, locked door in the basement. Max discovers a key hidden in a drawer, and they manage to unlock it. Inside, they find an old, dusty library with strange symbols etched into the walls. Sam: "These symbols look like they're from some kind of ritual." Jess: "It's probably just old decoration. Let's check out the rest of the house." As they continue exploring, they hear strange noises, creaking floors, whispers, and the occasional gust of cold air. They split in two to explore more places of mansion. Jess and Max find a hidden staircase leading to a basement, while Sam and Lily investigate the upper floors. In the basement, Jess and Max find old journals and photographs detailing a mysterious family who once lived there. One journal entry describes the Hollow's Curse, a dark ritual intended to bind spirits to the estate. Jess: "This is insane. It looks like the family tried to trap something here." Meanwhile, Sam and Lily find an old bedroom with unsettlingly lifelike mannequins dressed in old-fashioned clothing. Lily: "Why are these here? This is really freaking me out." Suddenly, the lights flicker and go out. The friends regroup, but when they do, Sam is missing. Jess calling out, "Sam? Where are you?" They hear Sam's voice faintly, coming from the basement. They rush downstairs, but the basement door slams shut behind them. In the basement, the friends find a hidden room with an elaborate ritual circle drawn on the floor. In the center of the circle is an old, dusty book with an eerie glow. Max: "This is the book from the journal. It must be the key to what's going on here." The whispers become louder, and the temperature drops significantly. Shadowy figures start to emerge from the corners of the room. Lily: "We need to get out of here. This place is cursed." As they try to leave, they hear Sam's voice again, but it's distorted and panicked. "Sam, help me, I'm trapped." The friends follow the voice to a hidden chamber where they find Sam bound by spectral chains. Jess: "We have to break these chains, help me." As they free Sam, the shadows close in, their forms becoming more distinct and menacing. The friends, now visibly terrified, make a desperate run for the exit. The mansion seems to shift and distort, with walls closing in and the ground trembling beneath them. Max: "This way! The exit is through here." They find their way back to the main hall, but the front door is blocked by a wall of shifting shadows. Jess grabs the book and starts reading from it, hoping to reverse the ritual. Jess: "This has to work. It says something about appeasing the spirits." As she reads aloud, the shadows begin to waver and retreat. The door finally opens, and the friends scramble outside. The friends collapse outside, gasping for breath. The mansion behind them seems to settle into silence, and the oppressive atmosphere lifts. Lily. I can't believe we made it out. Sam. Thank you, I thought I was done for. Max. We need to tell someone about this place. It's too dangerous. Some adventures are meant to remain untouched, their secrets buried beneath layers of dust and darkness. The Hollow stands as a reminder that some places should never be explored.
It was the end of October, and the air in the small town of Hollowbrook felt colder than usual. The days grew shorter, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer, like they were reaching for something or someone. Millwood High School had always been an old building, with creaky floors and outdated plumbing, but no one ever talked about the abandoned wing at the far side of the school. Rumors had been circulating for years about that wing, how it had been shut down after a tragic incident many decades ago. Some said it had been the site of a fire, while others claimed there had been strange experiments conducted there. But most students simply avoided it, never daring to step foot inside. Maya, a junior at Millwood High, had heard the stories. She'd heard them all her life growing up in Hollowbrook, but to her they were just that, stories, myths, legends, things to scare younger kids. That is, until one day when she found herself standing at the door of the forgotten wing. It had all started innocently enough. Maya and her friends had been exploring the school after hours, looking for something to do. They had sneaked past the teacher's lounge, through the empty hallways, and found themselves in front of the long, dimly lit corridor that led to the old wing. The door was slightly ajar, just enough to reveal a glimpse of the darkness beyond. "Should we?" Maya asked, her voice filled with hesitation. "I dare you," her friend Jake teased, nudging her toward the door. Maya laughed nervously. "I'm not scared of some old building." She pushed the door open fully and stepped inside. The air inside cooler, the silence unnerving. The hallway was lined with rows of lockers, their paint peeling and rusted. A faint smell of mildew hung in the air. It looked like no one had been there in years. Yet as Maya walked deeper into the wing, she noticed something strange. A series of old photographs taped to the walls, all of the same group of students. They looked to be from the 1950s, their faces eerily still, their eyes blank. Suddenly she heard a soft sound, a whisper. Her blood ran cold. "Leave now." She spun around, but there was no one there. "Did you hear that?" Maya whispered, her heart racing. Jake chuckled, but there was a nervous edge to his voice. "It's just the wind, or a pipe leaking. Let's just get out of here." But before Maya could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Heavy, deliberate steps that grew closer with every passing second. They weren't hers. They weren't Jake's. Maya's breath hitched as she turned to look down the hallway. There in the distance, a figure stood in the shadows, tall, wearing a dark, tattered coat. The figure didn't move, but Maya could feel its gaze on her, even from the distance. Jake grabbed her arm. "Let's go now!" They turned to run, but the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before them. No matter how fast they moved, the exit remained far away, just out of reach. The footsteps behind them grew louder, now accompanied by soft murmurs, like voices beckoning them forward. Maya's heart raced as she tried to push open the door they had entered through. It wouldn't budge. "Leave now," the whisper came again, this time louder, sharper, filled with an undeniable sense of urgency. The door creaked open a fraction, just enough to reveal the hallway beyond. But Maya could feel something pulling at her, dragging her back into the darkness of the wing. Then out of the corner of her eye, she saw it. A figure standing in the doorway of one of the classrooms. Its face was hidden in shadows, but its long, thin fingers were stretched out toward her, beckoning. "Help me," the figure whispered, its voice hollow and distorted. Maya screamed, pulling Jake with her as she tore herself away from the door. But as she turned to run, the hallway seemed to collapse around her. The walls shifted, the ceiling sagging, and the air grew thick with a suffocating pressure. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet gave way, and she fell. The world spun around her as she tumbled into a pit of darkness. When she finally landed, she found herself in a small, dimly lit room, the walls covered in the same old photographs of the students from the 1950s. The room was cold and the air smelled musty, but there was something far worse than decay. It was the overwhelming sense of being watched. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she saw that the photographs on the wall were not just pictures. They were eyes, dozens of eyes staring at her from within the frames. And then, from the corner of the room, came the unmistakable sound of someone whispering, "Welcome back." Maya turned around slowly, only to see the figure from the doorway standing behind her, its face still hidden in shadow. Its hand reached out to touch her shoulder, and when she screamed, she realized there was no escape. She was trapped in the abandoned wing now, and it was hungry for new souls. And every time someone dared to enter, the whispers grew louder.
In a quaint town where every street seemed to hum with life, the Johnson family moved into a seemingly perfect neighborhood. The houses, with their white picket fences and colorful gardens, looked like they were straight out of a postcard. However, as they unpacked, Alice, the youngest daughter, noticed something peculiar. The houses across the street were always dark, their windows like vacant eyes. Despite her parents' reassurances, Alice felt a chill every time she looked at the empty homes. Days turned into weeks, and the family settled in. They met some friendly neighbors, but no one ever mentioned the abandoned houses. Alice's curiosity grew. One day, emboldened by her questions, she decided to investigate. She ventured across the street to the first house. The grass was overgrown, and the porch sagged. As she stepped onto the creaky steps, she heard a faint whispering. The sound was unsettling, like a conversation just out of earshot. Pushing the door open, entered a dusty living room, untouched by time. The air was thick with decay, and a sense of unease washed over her. In the corner, she spotted a photograph on the wall, 4 smiling faces. A mother, father, and 2 children. She recognized them from a newspaper article she'd seen in the local library. The family had vanished without a trace years ago. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, echoing through the empty house. Panicked, Alice backed away, but the door slammed shut behind her. She rushed to the window, but the glass wouldn't budge. The whispers transformed into frantic voices, pleading for help. Heart racing, Alice pressed her hands against the window, her breath fogging the glass. She could see shadows moving outside, figures lingering just beyond her line of sight. Desperate, she began to scream. The whispers grew silent, replaced by a chilling calm. Finally, the door creaked open. Alice stumbled outside, gasping for air. She looked back, but the house stood silent, as if nothing had happened. That night, Alice couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She told her parents, but they brushed it off as her imagination. Determined to uncover the truth, Alice returned to the house the next day, this time with a flashlight and a notebook. As she explored deeper, she discovered remnants of the family's life. Children's toys scattered in the corners, a half-finished puzzle on the table, and a diary tucked away in a drawer. The entries were filled with joy, but they quickly turned dark. The last few pages detailed the family's descent into paranoia, hearing whispers in the night, feeling watched, until they finally wrote, "They're coming for us." Chilled to the bone, Alice looked around. The shadows seemed to thicken, and she felt an overwhelming presence. Suddenly, the diary flew from her hands, landing open on the floor. The pages turned rapidly, stopping on a drawing of the family. Only this time, their eyes were hollow, their smiles twisted. Panicked, Alice bolted from the house, the whispers chasing her. She stumbled back home, heart pounding. That night, she couldn't sleep, haunted by the voices. They seemed to seep into her dreams, pulling her into a dark void, filled with the sorrow of the forgotten. Determined to save the lost souls, Alice sought the help of a local historian who had researched the neighborhood's past. He revealed that many families had vanished over the years, their spirits trapped in the houses, unable to move on. The houses feed off fear, he explained. They'll take anyone who investigates too closely. The next day, Alice returned to the house with the historian. Together, they set up a small séance, hoping to communicate with the trapped spirits. As they gathered, the atmosphere thickened, and the whispers grew louder. Alice closed her eyes, reaching out to the voices, begging them to reveal their truth. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the room, and the shadows coalesced into a figure, the mother from the photograph. Her eyes were filled with despair. "Help us," she whispered. "We can't escape." Alice felt a surge of determination. "What do you need?" she asked, her voice steady. The ghostly mother pointed toward the diary, and the whispers intensified, echoing through the house. Alice understood. The family needed their story to be told. They had to be remembered. With the historian's help, Alice began to document their lives, sharing the forgotten stories of the vanished families with the town. As she did, the weight of the house seemed to lift. The whispers softened, and one by one, the shadows began to fade. Weeks later, Alice stood outside the house one last time. The air felt lighter, and the darkness that had clung to the neighborhood began to dissipate. The windows sparkled in the sunlight, no longer vacant.